Out.
There we go. Let's go on. Let's go. Let's have it.
Right from London and Dunstable, coming right at you on the same bat channel, same bat time, like clockwork. Not in orange, but it's in orange. Wayne's World Wednesdays with Wayne, Bettess, and the crew.
Let's go. Come on. Whey!
It's going to get more outrageous and more outrageous.
Yeah, I lost track when you started talking about clockwork and orange. I was like, where's he going? Where's he going?
That's the excitement of a Wayne's World Wednesday. You just never know where it's going to go.
Every episode is different, full of craziness as well, and hopefully a bit of helpful advice along the way.
Yes, there will be a lot of entertainment and just a little bit of value.
Yep.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. We're 1 week into the lockdown. I don't know about you, but I don't know. I'm not really feeling this whole lockdown thing. What's changed for you, Wayne?
Quite frankly, nothing now. It like locally, it all feels the same. Do you know, apart from the pubs being closed and the hairdressers, it pretty much feels the traffic's still just as bad everywhere. Do you know, we didn't have anyone cancel. Do you know, we'd like last time we had a few cancellations at the minute the rules changed. One thing I have noticed, there was a slight drop in leads, like abnormal drop for this time of year. So I don't know if people are tightening their purse strings a little bit. We haven't had a drop in sales. We've still sold loads, but yeah, that's the only real sort of thing that I've noticed. So
yeah, cool. And I want to welcome our one and only guest on the Zoom, because there's very shy people are shy today. But Chris, welcome. It'd be great if you could turn your camera on so we can see you and actually have like a face-to-face conversation. That's what
I'm going to do in a minute. I've just dove out at bath to get on, so nobody wants to see that. So
you'd be surprised. We have a lot of pretty girls off the tour. No, I don't mean to be politically incorrect, but no, okay, I won't even go there. Never mind. So, okay.
Move on.
Abort. Okay.
Shit, so we're live, quick.
I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to start off the conversation. Let's talk a little bit about recruitment, Wayne. And
yep.
Some people in the group are a bit curious as to like, when is the right time to take on your first staff member, your engineer? When do you take on the right first person?
So it's a balancing act. Sorry, I've just got one last place to post this just so we can make sure everyone that wants to see it is got a chance to see it. So just bear with me 1 second. Sorry, guys. And then I'll get back to answering that question. There we are. Okay. There it is. Marcus announcement. Right, yeah. So with regards to that question, really, there's no right or wrong answer. The only thing that my experiences have told me, hi Bex, is quite simply that you shouldn't do it when you're desperate for it. So this time of year, when there's loads of work and you're manic and you're stacked out, although like you might think logically it's the right time, in my experience, it certainly isn't, because you make a rush hire. You grab anybody that's available and you haven't really had any time to plan and sort of onboard them correctly. So I think the best time would be sort of summertime, when you've got a little bit more extra time on your hands, in the build up to the point where you want to employ someone. Maybe start putting a bit of money to side just to cover the first few maybe weeks or months, just to make sure that you have time to get across how you want that person to embed in your company. If you just drop them in, you know, they're going to do things wrong. They're not going to know the processes of what you do. So you really have to buy yourself a window of time to really work with that person to get the best out of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, tell us like the first time that you employed your first person, and what was your experience, and what did you go through from a mindset and a
So
organizational standpoint?
first of all, it's very scary because when we go self-employed or set up our first business, most people, it's them. It's just their family or like their household that's on the line. The minute you take somebody else on, you have got that responsibility of feeding someone else's family, and that's how how I looked at it. And it was quite nerve-wracking, and it's quite a big barrier to push through. But at the time that I knew that the business was going well. I knew that the winter was coming, and I knew that I needed them extra pair of hands. So I had to suck up a little bit of profit in that first month, 2 months, so I could get them on board. Understand the software I was using at the time. This was the first time I employed someone. Was God, it's got to be 8 years ago now. It might even be longer than that. I lose track of the years. But yeah, it was really just a mental block that I had to just sort of push through. And if you've got to be confident that you can get the work, obviously, because you don't want to fill someone else with commitments that you can't keep. There's no point employing someone just because you've got a busy week ahead of you, because if they're giving something else up, you've got to have a little bit of like honor and expectations have to be set with where you need to go. But yeah, it's a nerve-wracking time. So anyone else that is maybe in that position now, it's perfectly normal to be shitting yourself, thinking, am I doing the right thing? But as long as you've got, in my opinion, as long as you've got a bit of time you can spend with them, you've got a bit of money that can back you up, in case there are a few quiet patches as you sort of grow into that new business that you're building, then yeah, it's jump in.
How much cash in the bank do you think, a small business needs to just have as a safeguard to like feel more comfortable to employ?
So now, if I would want a minimum of 3 months that would cover their wages for 3 months, but that's not always practical. For a small business, 3 months wages is for somebody else is quite a lot of money. So you definitely want at least 2 months, I think, because you just don't know what's going to happen. You just don't. Yeah, I'd say 2 to 3 months is a fair safety net. Mm-hmm. If you haven't got that, then you're sort of rolling the dice a little bit because you're with somebody else's livelihood at the end of the day. So just be careful.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Welcome everyone. I'm going to welcome Bex. I'm going to welcome Sham. I'm going to welcome Stephen and Eton. There's a few people joining.
Oh, we're getting a few people on now, are we?
To everyone on Facebook, leave some questions. We're monitoring the Facebook feeds. You can find the link to the Zoom call as well in the post somewhere, and the Off the Tools event post.
You have to search Off the Tools podcast, and then the link is in the description in the events page on there. If I don't know if Carolina can post it in a comment on where I've shared it. So I've shared it in Plum Chat and Off the Tools. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. Okay, so another question we want to address is, ways to generate more work. What can you do? You don't have enough work. You want more work. Where do you go?
So, the first thing my advice would be is do the basics right first. So make sure that you're collecting your customers' information so you can remarket to them via email, text messages. You can spend money. Of course you can spend money, but before you start to spend money, you want to be leveraging your existing clientele and your local contacts and stuff. So that's the first step is really, really double down on getting more out of the current pot of clients you've got. It's 10 times easier to sell to somebody that you've already done work for than it is to attract a new client. Obviously that has costs. Then you've got to build all that trust and rapport. Obviously you do at some point need to do that, But before you do that, my opinion is that you need to be maximizing the clientele that you've got. And then obviously then you can start looking at, pay-per-click advertising. Obviously that's very popular if it's run right. And that's very important. That I see a lot of negativity around it, but in my experience, it comes from lack of knowledge on how to make the most of it. It's a totally different animal. It's a PPC client that you attract has to be treated in a completely different way to someone that's just a recommendation or something like that. So be prepared that you're going to have to sort of change and adapt and look for more information around how you maximize leads like that. So
yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes you just can't beat some basic marketing, just flyers, business cards. If you're not doing them, then don't do anything else yet. Do that first. Get your name out in the local area. A little bit harder at the moment. You can't go into cafes and leave cards and stuff like that. But yeah, that's like a cheap, no frills way of starting to generate some more work. And it's quite possibly what most of us would have done when we first started. Mm-hmm. And people get a bit rest on their laurels, I suppose, and think that they don't necessarily have to go back to the basics, when sometimes a little bit of a couple of steps back, going over things that worked when you first started, can really help.
Absolutely. So I'd love to ask a question to people on the call at the moment. We've got Etan, we've got Sham, Bex. Anybody wants to contribute? I'd love to hear, sort of raise your hand. I'm going to ask you a question. Raise your hand if you'd like to respond to this. So when you guys were starting out and it was a bit of a confusing time, what was one strategy that really helped to turn the tide for your business or really make an impact? What's like one thing that you implemented in your business that you can say, you know what, I did that and that got results. It was just work for me. Bex, you wanna, okay, yeah, you can unmute. And let's try to let's try to go through some answers, succinctly and quickly, so we can just get a variety of responses. Thanks, Bex.
Hi. So obviously not in the same, like the plumbing and heating industry, but the one thing that a lot of my clients have said is that I'm completely bonkers, and that's what drew them to me, is the fact that I'm a little bit nuts. So it's personality that made them a little bit made me a bit more trustworthy with them, and word of mouth. And from that word of mouth, because it's been a bit of a cascade, where at the beginning it was quite slow, and then one person's told someone else has told somebody else, and then the work has sort of come in for me.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else? Etan, yeah, go for it.
So for me, it was Facebook groups. I did like some guerrilla marketing in Facebook groups, especially the mums groups. They were like really, really good to me. And met mums. Not saying that I was a predator amongst like single mums, but like it was good because once you did one good job, then they would tell their friends, and there was a massive cascade effect. That and back when Checkatrade was Checkatrade, before it became a home serve company, Checkatrade was good for me as well.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And okay, anyone else would like to contribute a little marketing tactic that sort of changed the game in their business a bit?
I'll pipe in a little bit. It's something that I haven't been doing lately, actually, and I'm in the process of rebuilding it. But referral marketing, basically, when I first started, excuse me, I would any work that I did for people, like any boilers, I would just say to them, look, we'll give you a love to shop voucher. That's what I used at the time. If you recommend us to somebody and we do a job for them, I think it was 25 quid vouchers that I used to give out back then. And that really worked. And it's something that I knew I should be doing it. It's just like when you're busy, life just gets in the way, but I'm actually building something that is going to be really, really good. And I'm hoping to launch that in January for using referral marketing, because when you get a customer recommend you, you'll all know this in this industry, you know, you're halfway there already. So that really sort of took me from sort of like 5 to 10, 20 boilers to sort of 40, 50 boilers a year, because it was an encouragement for them to recommend us, and it really worked well.
Awesome, thanks. I think Sham wants to say something.
Thank you. Just guys, what you just said there is, for me, it was answer your phone and turn up.
Yep.
And literally as simple as that, and that's what people want.
Yeah,
basically.
Wow. Never thought of that one.
It's basic, but you're right. Do you know how many tradespeople don't do it? They don't answer the phone, or they don't get back to somebody, or they don't show up, or at least tell people that they're not coming. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. And how easy is it to market the fact that you can answer your phone and turn up?
Yeah.
It's just,
it's just a couple of simple promises, isn't it? And
that's it.
And as long as you stick to that, then it's very simple. And it's strange, because if you had that level of like crapness in other industries, or in other, like if you had a shop and you just never opened, or one day you shut at 3 o'clock and turned the phone off and stuff, the shop wouldn't last, would it? But in the trades and construction industry, it seems to be a bit too easy for people to muster up a living, so they sort of don't have the respect for the business. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think we get away with stuff. And I was speaking to Francis earlier, that we as tradespeople, we get away with a lot of stuff because of the tarred brush and the stigma that's attached. We kind of get away with a lot of stuff because the customer's almost expecting us to be late, not really turn up, not answer our phone. And it's like, oh, well, just waiting for the plumber. He might turn up tomorrow.
Well, I don't know who has a worse reputation, contractors, tradesmen, or marketers.
Especially American ones.
Oh, yeah.
But every industry, let's have a comment on that point, because I think that every industry has got these similar issues, in the sense, it's trust, customer service, where if you're offering the same product, unless you've got a truly unique product that no one else has on the market, and obviously, you can have great boiler installs, great service, superior customer service, but I think it's that knowing that you're there for someone is ultimately what's going to make people to buy. Knowing that you care, knowing that you answer the phone when you have a phone call or a question, that you're polite, and you actually can put yourself in the customer's shoes. That sometimes purchasing these things can be stressful, especially people have bad experiences. And I know that, one of my big learnings in my business at the moment, having worked with a whole bunch of clients now, is yes, we get results for our clients, but it's not just that. It's actually, you're there for us. You care about us. That is actually becoming a point of differentiator. And I've learned to really value that. And I think it's the same in trades businesses. If you care, if you genuinely care, and you also teach your teams, teach your staff to care on the phone. Like when you pick up the phone, what's your mood when you pick up the phone? Is it like, hey, how hello, what's going on? Or is it, hello, this is XYZ company, happy to, are you having a great day? How are you today? We're happy to serve you, answer any questions that you need. All of a sudden, you've got, you're warming up that client. So customer service, I think, is really not.
It is, as Sham and what you just said, Francis. It's the whole customer service journey is the best way to keep getting work, because if you can nail the basics, one thing that I always instill into my lads is it's the little things that matter. The customer doesn't see the 2 days hard graft you spent in the loft fitting the boiler. What they notice is the 5 fag butts on their driveway. Like, do you know what I mean? All that hard work can be undone by a couple of stupid like small things. And as long as you can avoid the small things, and deliver on the basics, then you can make a lot of money in this industry and in any trades industry, really.
Okay, we got a question from the group coming. Ian Clark. His question is the switch from one-man band to employer. You touched on this earlier on, and we talked about hiring your first employee, but maybe this question has a different angle. It's what is your advice when you actually just you need to transition into you are the business to actually building.
Well, the first thing is you've got to have a switch in your head that goes from having a job, because if you're a sole trader, then you're doing a job, you know, in essence. It might make better money than a PAYE job, but it is still in essence a job. But the minute you take that step and take somebody on, you are then a business owner, director, you know, whatever you want to call it. So you've got to start acting like it. I often speak to people that I work with on my programs that if you put yourself, so if you're employing someone, right, and if you put yourself in their shoes, you need to feel that person with confidence that the company that they're going to join is a proper business. It's not just Jack down the pub. Do you know what I mean? It's a proper business. You've got to present it as a proper business. You've got to show them the systems and stuff that you're going to be utilizing, so that they're sitting on the other side of that desk or other side of that bar or wherever you might be doing the interview on Zoom now, thinking, this is a proper company that I'm coming to. This isn't a Mickey Mouse outfit. So it gives that level of respect to the whole thing. And it's really is important. If you try and be Jack the lad and one of the guys with them, you know, you're always going to have that barrier of respect, because you are their boss. So you've got to have that level of professionalism. And if you've been self-employed for a while, you know, you maybe have lost that professionalism that is important if you're going to be employing people. So I would definitely say, before you do anything, you need to make that shift in your mind that, look, when I take this person on, this is it. It's a proper business now, and I've got to treat it with the respect. You know, you've got to do everything that you're meant to do as a business owner.
Yeah, and you're taking on, the thing is that from an ethical standpoint, you know, if you don't have ethics and you don't have a stand in life, this is just my view on it. If you don't stand up for something in your business and you don't know why you're doing it, and you don't have certain values in your business, you know, that's going to reflect on the type of business that you create, and ultimately the success that you can achieve, right?
Calm down, Francis.
And, you know, when you're taking on a staff member, you're responsible for that person, that livelihood, your livelihood. They have a family, they need to eat. You're creating employment and you're making a contribution. And if you don't want to take on that responsibility to grow your company sustainably, I wouldn't take on any staff. If you see your company as a vehicle for yourself, then don't. But if you see it as you want to commit, if you want to build a contributing entity in the world that makes an impact, not just for yourself, but for other people, you're creating employment, you're serving other people, then yeah, you have a mindset shift to make.
Yeah, definitely.
With great power comes great responsibility, as Spider-Man once said. It sounds like you. Okay, we don't have any more questions. This could be a short call, but does anyone have a business challenge on the Zoom call they would like our collective brains to address or brainstorm? You can raise your hand. Thomas.
Can I just make...
Thomas, did you
I just want to say something on that, what you were talking about then. I did,
yeah.
I did.
Yeah, that's you, Thomas. Yeah, go on.
Just going back to what you were talking about then, if he's thinking about taking people on, like everything that you said, you've got to give them the confidence and portray yourself right and make sure the business is all set up. But at the same time, you've got to cover yourself. You've got to have a handbook created, which is something I didn't have in the beginning, to make them understand what their roles are and what's expected of them, i.e., look after the van, dress presentably, don't throw ciggy butts out and that kind of thing. But the ciggy butts sort of thing is just general etiquette and just being a decent person. But I had guys that were driving vans, they damaged the vans, and their attitude was, that's what you got insurance for, isn't it? I said, well, no, not at all. And that's when I realized that my sort of human resources side of the business was horrendous, because I was just too soft. And all of a sudden you can end up with that whole heap of crap, just by not having little things like a contract. Yes, is one thing, but a handbook is another thing, and they have to adhere to it. I had one guy that really, it was his business was taking people to court, so like his bosses, and he pushed them to the edge. And I found out these two previous employers were taken to what we have in Jersey, something called Jacks, which is like a support group for people that might be getting sacked, or people getting 0-hour contracts and they're just fobbed off, and that kind of thing. But he did it a lot to make money out of it. He was more invested in employment law than he was in being a better plumber. Right. So eventually, when we attempted to sack him, we caught him fiddling his hours, but we caught him doing other things. But they said, you have to focus on one thing. And I'd forgotten that he hadn't handed his contract in signed, completely forgotten. Everyone else had, and he hadn't his. So when it came to the tribunal and we had it bang to rights, he said, well, I don't have to adhere to your handbook because I never signed my contract. And I was like, So that's when I thought, I'm going to throw him through the window. And luckily, my secretary, who has a lot of experience in employment, and she was HR somewhere for head of HR for years, she said, yeah, you're absolutely right, but you've got to give us back the 10 months wages that you had when you signed that, well, didn't sign that document. If you give us the 10 months wages back, then yeah, your argument stands. But I wouldn't have known that. But because she created this handbook, it sort of had him tied up. A lot of people are just too nice and don't have these things because it's admin, it's off the tools, and we don't think about it. So that's, if you're going to take anybody on, you got to give them a probation period for starters, make it clear what kind of quality work you want, and then have it written down in paper. This is what you've got to adhere to. Otherwise, people can tie you up in knots, and it doesn't matter how nice you are and how good you've been. Yeah. There's some kind of bloody loophole they get you. So that's do that. Whatever you do.
That's some sounds very, very, very good points there. So where would you recommend people can get this information? Through like a HR consultancy, some sort of person like that?
Well, like I say, I was lucky because my secretary, she was actually the head of HR at Jersey Airport for 17 years. So she dealt with the state, which is our government basically. So I was lucky in that respect. But there are people that do that. I think I speak to the other day, Health and Safety Director, helping me do my risk assessments, my method statements and stuff. But he did say, and his name is Ryan. I'll tag him in this. And he was really helpful, and he said they can help out with that sort of thing, or the HR stuff. So that's Health and Safety Direct. But they have a porthole which gives you access to all kinds of things like health and safety training, different documents for control of hazardous substances, to putting up a scaffold, to a ladder, all things that your lads can access, or your lads and ladies can access. And there's no excuses then they haven't been given the training, or you have done everything diligently to make sure that they are covered.
On that point, I got stung a few years back. Funnily enough, the guy I was his apprentice for a very short period when we worked for a bigger firm. Anyway, long story short, he come and work for me. And I basically didn't do any of that. And he had a couple of days off one time, didn't really think much of it, just thought sicky, how it goes. And then when I sacked him, 3 months later, I got a letter from a solicitor saying he'd done his back in and he was suing me. And I was like, the hell? Anyway, I read through it all. And in essence, it basically was that he had hurt his back taking the boiler off the wall. And I sort of rang my public liability insurance or employer liability insurance. And I said well, that's just like a hazard of the job. We have to take boilers off. And he was like, well, as long as you've got a risk assessment that shows how he should do it. And I was like, the geezer's been in the industry 30 years. He's more experienced than me. And he was like, sorry. He said, we're going to have to just pay him. I was
Doesn't
like,
matter.
what, you're not even going to try and fight it? And he was like, nope. He said, if you ain't got that bit of paper, do you know, bang, we just write the check, out he goes. And I was just like,
That's it.
my God, how like easy, obviously for someone that wants to maybe play the system, and how dangerous that can be.
100%.
Yeah, that was a real eye opener, and thankfully it was covered by my insurance, you know, and that got looked after. But it could have been a very sort of dangerous experience, definitely. And and I suppose too, like at that time it was just naivety. I just didn't think that you needed. It's a fundamental part of the job, so I just presumed. And presumption is the mother of all fuck ups. I just thought it was common sense. If you're taking a boiler off, you know, you have to put your steps out. You have to, you know, take it off one level, pull it down, and that was could have been a very expensive lesson, and it sure did put my insurance premiums up for a few years. So I would definitely say it's worth looking for somebody to help with that. I don't know, Bex, do you offer any sort of guidance on that side of things?
I don't personally, because employment law, HR is quite it's a very dedicated ball game. The one thing that I will say to anybody who is potentially looking at becoming an employer is there's a fantastic site called ACAS, ACAS. They are the UK's most impartial advisors around employment law. I've used them myself because all those years ago, 9 years ago, when I had my son, before I actually got fired because I was pregnant, because I was on probation. They turned around and said, oh, we don't need to, you've got a replacement, permanent replacement. And that was my first inkling that my job was gone. Without the support of ACAS, I could have just been fired, end of conversation. They helped me go through a tribunal to be able to, because of my length of service, they went, you can have your job back or not. So that's literally it. So they will be able to advise both employees and employers about certain particular law. But there are different HR freelancers that do it just like I would do as a virtual assistant. They also offer that out. So you would only pay for the time that you use and the contracts. They'd be able to get all the contracts done for you, especially like things like furlough now. If nobody really knows what to do with that, then outsourced HR is available.
Cool.
Can I just chip in quickly?
Oh, I thought we was getting an episode without your big face on it, Anne.
Sorry, mate.
I love you, really. You know,
I'm really sorry. I'll be quiet. You carry on.
No, don't be silly.
You carry on.
Don't be silly. I've got nothing to say.
So Shona's really good for HR. So if anyone wants HR, Shona's really, really good. She did all our contracts again. So in like basically if you smash up the vans or you like do stuff that you're not supposed to be doing, or you take the piss, then you need a contract to cover you, and Shona's really, really good at that. She's just redone all our contracts. And again, I'd like to second that HS Direct. Ryan was really good. He did our portal and stuff. So all the new starters, they get like 1 million exams to do, like lifting, ladders, asbestos, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they're also really good too. That's it. Swear.
Cool. Can you guys post some links to these people that you're recommending, if that's all right? Yeah, is that okay?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay, what else have we got going on? Stephen, any updates on your end by any chance? Love to hear from you. Normally we get to you last, right? Not this time.
Hi guys.
Hi, how you doing?
What you got going on?
Yeah,
very well.
Yeah, I did have a question, but I couldn't find a way to word it when you put the post up initially. But it's probably changing subject a little bit, if that's all right. But I've been wondering how, as a sort of sole trader, you just pick up work when it comes in. But has anyone kind of ever got to a point where they want to sort of specialize in a specific area? And how do you kind of navigate towards that while, when you're kind of setting up, starting up, or even if you're established, I'm guessing. But so let's say that area perhaps might be renewables or specifically bathrooms, etc. How do you kind of pinpoint and navigate your business towards that whilst you're also trying to make a living and build up the tools, etc., and the market and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it.
So I'll chirp in first. I'm sure there's a few other people that will have some comments on this, but first of all, you've got to know what it is that you want to focus on. Yeah. So for me, I knew it was boilers. So I totally redone all of my marketing. I done all my website. So it was, anyone that landed on it could clearly see that is what I do. Do you know? That is the first step, really, is one, understand what you want. So if you know it's renewables, you know, you've got to focus on creating the qualifications that you need. Go out and get all of them, of course. Then you've got to focus on the marketing that you're putting out there, has to be dedicated to trying to generate customers that want that service. So we still get a few random people. My company is called yournewboiler.com, right? And I still get old Doris down the road ring me up to, can you fix my toilet? I'm like, how did you ring me? Like, how did that happen? So you can never eliminate it. But 95% of my inquiries are, guess what? For new boilers, because that's what I'm putting out there. That's what I focused on. I made everything link to that. So it attracts what I want. If you're happy doing plumbing and heating, you know, that title's fine because it covers what plumbing and heating. If you just want to work on solar panels, for example, then you need to make it obvious that that is what you are the specialist in. So one of the first stages I did is I started using the word specialist, boiler installation specialist, because then it gave me some sort of air of authority over the Joe Blogs Plumbing and Heating that just had a boiler section on their website. So you really, you've got to hone in on what it is that you want, and then everything else has to play a part in creating that. So whether it be your van sign writing, the uniform that you wear, the marketing that you put out, even to the point of your emails and stuff like that, you know, if whatever section of the industry that you want to generate work in, everything has to be pointing out and back into the same direction.
Cool. Thanks, mate.
I hope that helps. I'm sure some other people might have like some other views on that. So
chip in on that one. I'd love to
Yeah,
ask.
you've got to stick to, like he says, one thing. If I've got plumbing and heating on the side of the van, and no mention of 24-hour call out or anything, and I'll still get calls Saturdays and Sundays at all times, and they keep calling the number as if like I'm not going to give in. Yeah, they're like, no, we don't offer that service. It's, well, this is your plumber. Yeah, but not 24-hour call out. So, like you say, old Doris down the road they'll just keep trying, and especially if their friend has said, oh, he's a really nice person, and he like touched the pipe one day, so he must be able to do it. If you can just make it as clear as possible, then I think like Wayne says, you'll be that'll make it easier. But then maybe,
and the earlier
like
you do it, the better as well, I think, because if I the old saying, if I knew what I knew now, like I spent years doing shit that I just didn't want to do for people I didn't want to do it. And it's like, what a waste of like opportunity and time that I did. Obviously it's given me the lessons, so it wasn't totally wasted. But if you're starting out, but then you've also, let's come back to Stephen's point there, actually, because you've got to balance that with eating, haven't you? Do you know, and making enough money to survive. And it is a seesaw. You've got to put some pressure down in the areas that you want, but you can't go all in, because if that's your only income, you've still got to do other bits until you can build that other side up enough where it can compensate not doing the other things.
Steve, is it renewables that you want to be in, or would you just use that as an example?
As a bit of both. At the moment, I'm at such a varied. Each week can look so differently. But yeah, I kind of would like to probably navigate in renewables and more heating than fixing shower trays that keep breaking on you and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's nice.
So
the reason I say it is because over here we've got a lot of companies that are fitting eco houses, so like frame form, purpose built properties that are essentially meant to be energy efficient. So obviously a heat pump and renewables lend themselves to those. So Wayne mentioned the other week that he uses flyers or you used to and post into certain areas to get, that's the kind of work that he wanted. So they might together and then just contacting, eco build, frame form type builders.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Nice. Okie
Thanks,
doke.
guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Oh yeah. So David, do you want to ask a question? I think we got something in the chat, but maybe you want to ask it live here on Facebook Live in front of the entire world. David.
Is he there?
Evening, guys. Can you hear me?
Hey, David.
How you doing?
Welcome
All right?
aboard. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Yourselves?
Yeah, good.
Good. Yeah, it was just a quick one, really. So my biggest problem at the moment is not saying no. So taking on too much work. We've already got we'll have a third engineer starting in a couple of weeks, but I still end up taking on all this extra work, ending up on the tools, and then don't have enough time in the day to do any of the stuff I should be doing. How do you stop yourself doing that? How do you get away from doing that? Do I
Is
just
it
take
the
the van away
money?
from myself?
Is it the money you're chasing, or is it the responsibility you feel you have to them clients?
I think it's the latter, mate. To be honest, I'm not money driven, so it's not that.
So that's a harder one to sort of get over. But the best thing I ever did was commit and focus all my attention on what I wanted, which was to be off the tools. So I got rid of my van. So I have basic hand tools, and at this point now, I probably wouldn't. Like, I even had my plumbers come in and do my radiator at my house because I just not going to do it anymore. But if you're 100% sure that that's what you want, then you've got a like, if you ask my children what I do, one of them does it to annoy me. They'll say he's a plumber, and I'm like, no, I'm bloody not. Okay, because I'm not anymore, because I don't do it anymore. And if you're willing to commit to that, you have to take yourself out of the equation, because otherwise you're basically your own dummy. You're your own soother. Do you know, if there's problems happening, do you know, oh, okay, I'll have to go out and do it. And then that's just a vicious cycle. You'll keep doing it. I've had to piss off customers because I won't go. Do you know, it'll be a Saturday and they're woken up and there's water on the floor. And it's like, I have no one available. Technically, I could have got in and got the basic tool bag that I've got in the back of me motor, and I could have gone and sorted it. But then I'm just feeding the habit. I'm feeding that trait that I didn't want anymore. So yeah, you've got to make that decision that it's 100%. Do you know what I mean? That is right. Yeah. Financially, if you've got a couple of lads out or ladies, do you know, financially, you're probably going to be okay to lose a few clients. But what that will gain you in the time and this might be a bit harsh, but the self-respect as well, because if you want, it's not a matter of it's right or wrong being on or off the tools, but if you want to be off the tools, then you're not respecting your own wishes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
100%.
Really, it's like you've got to be brave enough, I suppose, is probably the word I'm trying to find, to say that's it. Do you know, simple. That is it. I ain't going out. Do you know? And then you've got to live by that though. So you can't just, it's my old customer from down the road, because that will lead to, while you're there, this is the next door neighbor. And then, you know, before you know it, you're back out 3 days a week and the business isn't moving forward. You're just going round and round in circles.
Brilliant. Cheers, mate.
Hope that helps, mate. Oh, I think someone else had their hand up. I just see a hand flutter.
Thomas.
It was me.
Hello. Go on. Who's that?
Hello, it was me. It's actually a question for David, because everything that we've just been talking about on that is, as a person yourself in everyday life, are you someone that likes to give up control? If the answer to that question is no, that's something actually the main thing to work on. And I see it in a lot of my clients, where it's sort of like, I really want you to do this, and then they don't give me anything because they don't want to give up that control themselves. It's like, can you check my emails for me? But then they will dictate how those emails should be checked. And actually, there's an element of having the faith that the people that you've got around you, your toolbox knows what it is that they are doing, check in with them once in a while, but having that faith to give up that little bit of control that most people who run a company are control freaks. I'm a control freak, and most of the people that I know are control freaks. But having to give up that little bit of level of control and start small. If tomorrow you say, right, do you know what, I'm not going to do one job. Start small and build up so that by the end of the month, end of the year, you're a guy that's off the tools, doing what you do best, which is running a company and having minions.
Mm-hmm. I would like to speculate that business owners who delegate are also relatively good communicators, meaning that, you hear stories that, you expect employee to just, be another version or like a clone of yourself and do things and just imagine. But no, you actually have to be clear in terms of what you want and the expectations that you have. And you need to be good at giving people direction, because the employer-employee relationship is really a two-way relationship. And if you're not good at giving people directions and making sure they understand what you do, and you just assume they're going to do the job to your level of ability, with your language, with your quality, and do everything your way, the way they're not you. And so that's really part and parcel about being a boss and running a company, is actually, nurturing your team and having the patience to train, communicate clearly, do more of what's working, do less of what's not working, and actually be there for your staff as well.
I would just like to add as well on back to David, you owe it to yourself as the business owner to do what you want to do. It's your business, okay? And if that's your desire to do whatever it might be, if it's off the tools or whatever, you owe it to yourself to try and achieve that. And you're only holding yourself back. So set yourself, like as Beck said, set yourself some small targets. Like, I don't know how often you are going out, but if you're going out every day, say to yourself, right, every Monday and Friday, come hell or high water, it ain't happening, and build yourself in. If it's just the odd job, but it seems to drag you back, then it's a shorter process to eliminate. So yeah, you've just got to sort of look at it and start making a progress on it, really.
Okay. Thomas, you have your hand up. Is that your hand up or not?
Yeah.
Go for
so
it.
Kind of connected to what David was asking. So I'm very much like David. I don't do anything on the tools. Occasionally, if I'm just there and they want a hand, I'll give them a hand. But I drive around a lot, and I had similar issues in like trusting people they're going to do it the way I want it to be done. So I went from 12 guys to 8 guys because I knew that 4 of them weren't doing it the way I wanted it to be done. So now I've got the 8 guys, and I'm like, right, you all know how I like things to be done, but there's still that issue with communication and getting them all clear on what I want them to do. So I think maybe for one thing that might help him is I was looking at ServiceMate the other day off the back of Wayne's recommendation, and within that you can write down jobs for everybody, and then everyone can see what you expect. You can upload pictures, etc., little checklists, so it's almost step-by-step guide on what you need to do, which will in part, I think, reduce phone calls and stuff. But all of this eventually, I feel my worry is it leads to a really well-run business, but then they kind of look at you and go, well what do you do then? So do you incentivize them? Do you price a job and have a little bonus in there to keep them all happy? Because eventually they'll get to the point where they think, wow, well, we know how you've made this ship, now we're going to make our own. That's kind of a question to Wayne. Do you I thought myself that you were just on your own, but then how many staff do you have, and how do you keep them happy?
So mine's fluctuated. So years ago I had lots of staff and fucked it all up. I had a showroom and stuff. Now we have an office lady, 2 installers and an apprentice. And one thing that I found is that money isn't always the motivator. So it's not, you can't just always dangle a carrot of money at people to keep them happy. One of the guys, he's got a young family, 3 children, you know, so if he finishes early, he gets to go home, you know, as long as the job's done and finished. And another one, he loves the what's the word I'm looking for? The plaudits of his results. Does that make sense? He's a really good salesman. So I just make sure that I massage that, you know, and I let him, like, I build him up constantly. And yeah, just it's about, I just treat people how I want to be treated. You know, obviously I have my bad days and I will snap at sometimes, and you know, life isn't, I'm not this perfect individual, but I always try to come back to, like, if there is a fuck up, right, I won't go in shouting and disrespecting them. You know, we'll try and unearth the problem. Is it something that I always ask, you know, like, is there something that I could have done to help that? Like, we had an incident where we burnt a carpet, and it was because he had run out of sticky, well, not because of he ran out of sticky roll, but the excuse was that he didn't have any sticky roll, so that he didn't prepare the job as well as he should have and stuff. So I sort of took the mistake from him and sort of like put it on myself and said, well, look, do you know, next time I'm going to make sure that every month we've always got some in the garage. So if you're ever running low, so I always try to try not to blame them for anything. I try to find the solution and answer it all in one. Does that make sense?
Exactly. It's again, it's preparation and making it clear what you expect. And sometimes I'll say the same thing. Oh, could I've prevented this from happening? And that's why I think I like that service mate. I've got a hold of the lady, I can't remember her name now, so I'm going to speak to her next week. Hazel, that's it, yeah. So I think that looks like fantastic, especially just to give them that sort of map of in and out of a job, and hopefully reduces the grief. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I like to, at the end of a job, if it's gone all right, and yesterday we had a drain test, which, you know, it should be a straightforward thing, but some people it isn't. And the boys, I know they've checked it 3 or 4 times throughout the job. Bang on, building control officer turned up, 10 minutes, just had a quick look. Perfect, thanks very much, guys. No hassle, builders made up. So I was like, right, give them a couple £100 each. Thank you very much. So I know they'll be happy, but I do think to myself, eventually I'm going to have to maybe change tact or give them more responsibility. But I am worried eventually I'll just be sort of sat there and it will just be, what do I do?
I think I used the phrase last time that if I'm busy, I'm not doing what I do. I'm not doing things right. And I really live by that, because if the fact that they might think, like, people, I get comments all the time, like, what do? You know, you're always just walking around with a dog or on a school run or whatever it might be. But it's not because I don't work. I work freaking hard, but I've put I don't care what other people think is the point, you know. So if your team are thinking that you're not doing anything because you're doing a good job, you know, you've just got to emphasize the graft and the years that you've spent to build that machine that is doing that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And try not to take it to heart. I know at first I used to like get a bit like smarmy with people. I used to be like, what do you mean I don't fucking work? Of course I would. Like, it used to rile me up, like, because I'm at home a lot of the time and my van's there, and, you know, like, the neighbors, the lady across the road the other month literally asked me,
making a comment,
do you actually work? And it's like, yeah, all right, love, whatever. Do you know, I'm too long in the tooth now to even get riled up by it.
Yeah.
But my family always make the comment as well. I think they do it to piss me off.
It's funny though. It's just the whole thing is like David said before, he's thinking about taking that step, and you can take that step and you can master that step, and then, I've mastered that step, and then you get some decent guys, and then the next step is you're worrying about something else, and you're worrying about something that but basically that you're in this position because you've achieved something, you've knocked over other fences. Yeah, there's always something, so you're never going to find that sort of the grass is greener type thing.
Yeah, but, and I would be bored if I didn't have anything to do. Do you know, it's just the further up you get, the bigger the problems, isn't it? It's like the problems don't go away. The hard work doesn't go. It just means that you leverage things a little bit to ease the pressure, so you could cope with more.
Yeah, it would be good. Maybe this is a note to Wayne and one of your training programs to chart, like, the different phases of growth of a trades business, from sole trader all the way to hiring first engineers, all the way to expansion, and sort of listing out the different challenges and set of problems that you have when you go from each phase to phase, because maybe a lot of people, they don't see it as steps in a ladder with a completely different set of challenges. And the inclination is to want the result. Everybody wants the result: lots of money, more time, less work, better quality of life, peace of mind, right over there. But in order to get there, you inevitably have to go through, you can't skip a phase of business growth.
No.
There's no shortcut, right, to just jump it.
And if you do, it's going to be a weakness on the ladder, do you know, and it could be the thing that pulls you back down.
Yeah. And actually, it's really comforting to see.
You've got great.
It should give everybody a bit of peace, right? To actually recognize where they are in the phases of growth, and to know that you're not alone and you're not encountering abnormal problems that no one else is. You're just in a certain phase of growth, and you can recognize that that's where you are, and you address the problems and challenges of that particular phase of growth, so that you can graduate to the next phase of growth that will give you another set of problems as well. So I think that that's always very comforting to know sort of where you are, and then you can plan to just not jump the gun and not wish for things that are not realistic within the reality of your certain situation. Anyone else? It's
I think someone posted on, if you look on your phone, Francis, Sean Holmes had a question. I did text you.
On my phone?
Yeah, I WhatsApped you.
Oh, okay. Let's have a look.
I don't know. Have you got time? Because it is 9 o'clock. So
yeah, let's do last question here.
Last one, yeah.
Sean Holmes. When things are really busy, how do you keep a handle on things? What systems or routines do you have in place? Good.
So first thing is you need to be planning. You know, you need to plan your day out properly. I'm sure Sean already knows that, but you've got to be doing it every single day. You know, if you haven't got a plan and you haven't got a structure to your day, then you're going to be running around in circles constantly. Still finding time for yourself. So you've probably all noticed, like this week, for example, I've been out running every day. You know, we're really busy. You know, I think we fitted 7 boilers this week. So we're flat out. Obviously, I've got my own coaching clients that I work with. We've got all of this that we do, but I still find time for myself when I know I need it. So if you're sort of getting stressed out and life sort of feels like it's coming in, you've got to focus a bit of attention on yourself, because it's all well and good just work, but you are human, and you need to make sure that you give yourself some time, even if it's late at night or early in the morning. You know, you've got to get that bit of time and that bit of release out to be able to get the best out of each day. And systems and processes, I could talk about it for forever, but you need to be running things professionally. You need to be automating stuff where you can. You need to be outsourcing stuff when you can. You know, if things are really busy, there's people like Bettess, you know, she'd be more than happy for a new client. Well, I guess she's really busy, but you know, in general, you know what I mean? There's people out there that can help with alleviating some of that pressure. So yeah, that's a few things there for you, Sean. If you're still on, he was on Facebook, he weren't in the Zoom, so hopefully he's still watching, but he's a good lad. I love Sean.
Sounds good. Final words, Wayne Bettess.
I would say look after yourself. Don't just keep hustling. Do you know? I know this time of year is busy, and especially with everything that's going on, all the uncertainty. If you've got a family, it's even more so important that you're at your best performance in not just work, but when you're at home and when you're around your kids, if you've got children. So yeah, the best thing I can say is, just if you take anything away from tonight, is just find a little bit of time for yourself, and then second, your wife or girl or partner or whatever it might be. Keep happy, really. Do you know?
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, everyone, from joining us. Thanks, Facebook. We want more people on the Zoom. Same time next week. Wayne's World Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. Have a great week.
Thank you, everyone. See you all soon, guys and girls.